I would come out of there thinking about the one small thing that I might not have done correctly and would hyperfixate on it for days. I'm going to do this. I'm going to face these things because I don't want this hanging over my head anymore and making it difficult for me to function in my day to day.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Welcome to another episode, everybody. I'm joined in the studio today by Alenna Trusik. She is an incredible woman with an incredible story that I cannot wait for us to delve into. She is currently still practicing as an attorney and she has built that business over time, but she's got a story of how she now helps other women and coaches and develops them in ways that you will not recognize, because we all go through these transitions and we hit these struggles with balance and burnout and high performance. You know what I'm talking about, and Alenna is your lady. So a huge welcome to the podcast, Alenna.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon for you.
It is for me. Yeah. No, I really appreciate you joining me with the time zone difference and the craziness of where we're based geographically. But it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I'm really excited to dive into your story because I only know kind of like snippets of it. So I'm genuinely intrigued and can't wait to get stuck into this. So let's start by just give us a little bit about who you are and what's brought you here to where you are today.
Sure. As it stands today, I am a practicing attorney here in Florida. I do marital and family law, but for the most part, I have shifted into more of the coaching aspect based on the things that I have been through that has taken me on a completely different journey of helping other women. But to give you just a little bit of my background, I grew up in a very harsh environment, great parents, but had a lot of childhood abuse, not from my immediate family, but extended family. So for me, I never really understood what it felt like to be in my body. It was separated from me. And based on a lot of the abuse that happened, I developed really severe self esteem problems. And so, in my mind, it was super important to become something so that other people knew I was somebody or knew I was smart or all of those other things. And so, becoming an attorney was my way of showing other people, hey, I'm somebody. In that process, because I had 2 children, single mom. My first daughter, I was a teenage mom. So I put myself through college, undergrad, as a mom of a toddler at 18 years old. Uh, it was a different experience. College was a different experience for me than most people. And then from there, I worked in corporate America for 10 years before I went back to school to become a lawyer, having known from the time I was a child that a lawyer was what I wanted to be. And then in law school, I decided it'd be a great time to have another child. So I had 2 children both times I've been in college, so you can't send me back to college ever. Post law school, opened my own practice, and it really bloomed and blossomed. It grew into something I never imagined, and having been from such a small town, just to give you a reference, my graduating high school class was 28 people. And those 28 people were the same people I started kindergarten with. So we went kindergarten through high school graduation, same people, same friends, everybody's very, very small, very rural, very poor community. So I really felt like I had made something of myself. And during the time I'm building my practice, I'm a single mom. So I'm kind of being a business owner. I'm in charge of all my clients, hundreds of them at the time, in charge of my children and taking them where they needed to be and being everything to them and just being everything to everybody. but not ever taking a look at what that was doing to me. And probably about 10 years ago, I started to develop all kinds of health problems, random health issues, gut issues, neurological issues, chronic pain, hormonal issues, just you name it, I had it. And doctor after doctor after doctor, no one could pinpoint the issue. There was nothing in my blood that showed all the blood work was good. There was nothing that showed anything inherently wrong. There were no diseases that were really the underlying cause. And it wasn't until I got to the point where my hair fell out, nearly all of my hair fell out, that I recognized, hey, this is a serious problem. And maybe there's something else going on here besides just symptoms, because each doctor treated each symptom as a separate issue, as if it was detached from any source of cause. And each medication caused some kind of side effect that just sort of exacerbated the problem. And when my youngest daughter moved out and I became an empty nester, I think I finally just, my body finally had a chance to kind of down regulate a little bit. And then everything fell apart body wise. And one of my doctors that I trust very much, who's a friend of mine, just looked at me and said, Alenna, you're going to die if you don't stop. This is stress. This is too much stress. And so that conversation led me down the path to where I am today. I took it what he had to say and really started looking at my stress levels.
Do you think the stress was caused by is it work related stress, or was it everything? Like, where
It
did the
was,
stress come from?
it was everything. I think because of the childhood sexual abuse, I was just very tightly wound. I've always been I became usually typically what happens when someone is sexually abused as a child, they either move on to drug addiction and kind of fall out of life, or they become extreme high achievers. And for me, the path, luckily, was to become an extreme high achiever, which has its own problems, as I know now. But perfectionism became the place where I hid the things I didn't want to feel. And frankly, I didn't even remember the sexual abuse. I was in my 40s before any of that started to show itself. So that perfectionism, coupled with being a single mom and growing a law practice that marital and family law is very, very contentious. Everything's a fight all day, every day. So it was like I was going into battle
Hmm.
every single day with every single person that I spoke with. And then also being the admin and the employer of 5 to 10 employees, trying to make sure I've managed them and taking care of their families. It all just got to be too much. So I think it was a really good combination of all of those factors.
Yeah, and it sounds like as well, and you were had been operating in a sort of survival mode for a long time. So even though you were outwardly a high achiever, great success, built your own law firm, put yourself through all that education, like really admirable as you set about proving like I'm worth something. I am somebody. I can make something of myself, and you did, and you accomplished this, but in underneath it all, it sounds like it was constant survival mode. I've got to survive. I've got to be able to be okay. I've got to look after everybody. That's a lot you were carrying. And okay. So carry on, because this is such a powerful story.
I didn't even recognize that I was living in survival mode because I didn't know anything different.
It's all
I
you knew. Yeah.
never knew anything different. I just knew I needed to be perfect and everything had to be perfect. And, I could go to court and I could do an excellent job for my client, became very good litigator, and leave that courtroom hyper focused on a word that I might have stuttered over, or I should have objected at that point. Something small. We could have been in an 8-hour trial that was a success for my client. And for me, I would come out of there thinking about the one small thing that I might not have done correctly,
Mm.
and would hyper fixate on it for days. And I was the same way even prior to law school. It just, that particular piece of me began to get worse and worse and worse until I started to have panic attacks randomly, but especially before court. And this is what I would do for a living. This is what I did every day. And the panic attacks were so severe that I had to be medicated for them. And I thought, I should not need a Klonopin or a Xanax before I go into court and do my job.
Yeah.
So things were starting to click for me that something's not right. But at the same time, I didn't know any different. I've always worked. I've always been, I've worked since I was 14. So I just didn't understand what was happening to me.
Had anything changed for that to happen? If you could confidently go in, do your job, and it was great and you knew you were good at what you do, but to then get to a point where you're scrutinizing your every word and perfectionizing every little detail, and you said that got worse. What did anything happen to make that get worse, or for you to feel the need to be better, better, better all the time, or did it just happen?
What I know now, looking
Mhm.
back,
Always the way.
right, my nervous system was just completely overloaded.
Right.
Lifetime of just storing emotions and repressing those things because crying wasn't allowed and
Mm,
help wasn't allowed. And so that perfectionism piece of me just kept blooming and
mm,
growing until it became such an issue that I think my body very naturally was trying to expel some of what it was holding. I did not know that at the time. And because I didn't know that, I actually decided I needed counseling. I hopped into a counselor who was in my building. I popped into her office one day and said, I'm having these weird panic attacks. This is unlike me. Can you help? And that was in 2016. And that started this entire process of healing.
amazing. Amazing. And really brave of you as well to just step forward and say, this isn't right. I don't know what to do. I need some help with this. I love that. Was the counselor any particular type of therapist, trained in any particular modality, or just a general consulting, counseling, talking therapy?
Well, this is one of those things that I find highly synchronous
Mhm.
because she was someone who was trained in victim therapy, people who'd been abused, domestic violence, some of the marital and family law stuff. And really, the reason I chose her was simply because her office was right next to mine. And I had to pass it every day coming in just to get to my office. She was in the same building, and I really liked her. And at the time, had I known where that was going to lead, I probably never would have done it because it has been a really difficult journey getting through some of that stuff because most of the memories I had were repressed. I did not know where this panic was coming from and the anxiety. I had no idea what the originating piece of it was. So it just so happened that that's what she did. And even then, it was probably 3 or 4 months in before I ever even mentioned any type of abuse as a child. So, and that changed the trajectory of everything else I've done since then.
Interesting that you said if you had known. you would have probably have like stepped into it. And it's good that you didn't know and you just went for it. But is that because it turned out that it required looking for those origins for these panic attacks and understanding why and where this was coming from, and to some extent delving into the depths of what you would rather have not? Is that why you would have not chosen to go there had you been aware that that's what you were signing up for?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because once we sort of started delving into it, there is no going back.
Mm,
Can't unsee what you've seen. And in order to deal with those issues and repressed memories and emotions, you have to feel them.
yeah.
And so all of this grief came up that was overwhelming. And so at that point, I'm grieving the 4-year-old me and trying to understand how it even could have happened and which memories are real and am I making this up, and just trying to understand how all of that worked, and also run my law practice and be the cheer mom, Uber driver,
Yeah.
and get to gangs and everything. And so it was just an incredibly difficult period. And I remember sitting outside my office one day in my car and just feeling so completely overwhelmed. I pulled up to my office and sat in my car and just started to cry in my car, bawling. And I finally said, you know what? Okay, God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to face these things because I don't want this hanging over my head anymore and making it difficult for me to function in my day to day. Please don't let me lose my business, because I have to be able to hang in there and take care of everyone while I do it. And I kind of made a decision at that point that I was going to face these issues no matter what, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful, whatever I needed to do to get it fixed, I would do. And at that point, I scaled back the number of cases I was taking and the types of cases I was taking. So if they were highly contentious cases with lots of litigation or something that I knew was going to take so much out of me that it would be hard, I would pass those cases to other attorneys who were interested in them. And probably 6 months of that very deep intensive counseling before I got to a point where I could at least breathe and feel like, all right, I'm okay. I'm okay.
I love that. It's really important. And I know that a lot of our listeners, as high performers that have built and created, I often say, like, created a monster, because we are high achievers. So we are very capable and we're very determined and we make things happen. But sometimes we make things happen and then we've got to carry it. And it's heavy. Then we're like, oh, wait a second, I don't know if I'm up to carrying this at this level. And I think, your story of it being a law practice and the like you said, going into battle like daily in those sorts of cases, that I get that, how heavy that must be, but I know there'll be listeners that can relate to that in completely different ways in running their business. It may be even a one-man band business, but they're carrying a lot of weight that they perhaps didn't sign up for or realize it was going to take. I really love that you said you knew you scaled back enough that you knew that you could survive. You knew that you'd be okay, but it would accommodate you doing the work that ultimately you knew you would have to do to get further. And I think that's really liberating, because sometimes we do have to step back to go forwards. So talk to us then about the next part of this, going through that journey to get to where you are now, and the reason behind what you do today, because I love your Instagram handle. It's Woman Reclaimed. Like, you've reclaimed you, the woman who you are, by going through all of this. And I know that it's it's big work. This is not, this is not just like landed on you. You've chosen this intentionally. So take us through that next stage.
Well, interestingly, I did that first round of counseling for 3 years.
Mm,
So I thought I was done. I thought it was handled, it was done. And then I went back to my practice and it just kept growing. And I loved it. But as I grew, I ended up working more and more and more. Hire more people, but then I'm managing more people. So gosh, I must have spent at least a year working 15-hour days, 7 days a week, not taking a break. And eventually, after a while, that is the point that my body crashed.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think, I went back to it full force, straight back into the overachieving. That's fixed. I'm done. Let me just, let's grow my business. This is what I really want to do without paying attention to any of the signals my body was sending me.
Mm.
And so I began to get just extraordinarily tired. I could sleep sometimes, I would not sleep well. And then I would have periods where I would sleep Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all day, all night, and then feel okay, go back to work on Monday. And that's when the health issues started showing up. Sometime around 47, 48, the health issues started showing up. And I was 51 before put the brakes on. And it was after many, many doctor visits and just finally making a connection that my body was telling me something, and it was telling me something very strongly. When, as a woman, your hair starts to fall out, it's a scary thing. And it's
Yeah.
sad to say I had so many other health issues during that time, but it was the hair that made me notice. And I think at the time I had lost down to 98 pounds. I was very, very underweight. So I decided I was going to shutter my practice. And it took me a year to do that, to slowly just not take any new cases and slowly work out the cases that I already had a year and a half ago. I think it was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. I closed my practice altogether and walked away from it and said, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And I spent a whole year resting and went back to counseling and finished that cycle out.
Okay.
During that particular time, the adrenal fatigue and the nervous system, that's where I learned how all of these things work and how they're connected to your body and how they're signaling things that you need to take care of and how all those emotions are stored and why you have certain illnesses and injuries. So I spent the last year and a half not only going through it myself, but studying it,
Mm.
just eating it up and loving learning that, just loving it. And some of the processes that I went through were extraordinarily healing for me.
I bet.
And as I kind of gone close to the where I'm feeling better now and I've turned the corner, so to speak. I just knew that I needed to speak that truth because I just couldn't I couldn't fathom that there weren't other women like me. I didn't know anyone at the time
Mhm.
because my colleagues were doing fine. I didn't personally know anybody else, but I thought I cannot be the only one. I just can't. There has to be other women that are feeling this way. And because I've gone through so much, I feel like it's kind of my duty, my moral obligation to turn that around and help other men, women. I tend to like to help women just because I am a woman,
Yeah.
and I know what it feels like to go through things as a woman, whereas men experience things differently. I can't speak to those things, so I have begun getting certifications and taking classes in somatic therapy and sound therapy and just all of these holistic things so that I can help other women who are facing those issues come out of that and regain their happiness and their energy and just their lives.
I love, love, love that. And I think you're speaking my language because I do a similar thing, but from more of an entrepreneur angle, and yours, it's not too dissimilar, but you've gone through that lived experience of the health and the load that you've carried, and well, the traumas that you've worked through and everything. Where I see this happen a lot with entrepreneurs, particularly women as well, is carrying that heavy load and building something to a point that then going, I can't cope anymore, I can't take it. And then you get the whole, there's a language in the entrepreneur space of like, burning my business down. And it's like, you do, it's kind of what you did when you said, right, that's it, I'm closing it all off. And sometimes you do need to close something off and start a new chapter. Other times you just need to reshape it, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think I speak to people, we've had guests on the podcast who have different stories in their businesses, of some that have gone, no, it had to be finite, cut and dry, new beginning, and
Mhm.
others where, and I've had experiences with this myself, where I've contemplated it being all gone, and then gone, no, there's another way it can carry on. It just doesn't need to carry on the way it currently is, and the weight that it puts on me. So I think it's really familiar territory in what you're talking about here, with how we operate, and that 100% there are lots more women out there that can relate to your story. I'm really glad you went, no, I'm going to go and find them and speak this truth and help people. I love anything that does that, because I think when we experience something and we go, I need to help people with this, this is exactly how one of my businesses was built, where in the parenting space, where I experienced something as a parent and went, why are people suffering with this?
Mhm.
It could be different, obsessed over it, went through the transformation, then went and got the professional studies and credentials to be able to make a difference, and then went and helped people with it for a decade. And it's like so rewarding when you can bring that back in
Yeah.
with so much passion. So talk to me about, so you went back into the counseling, and you said like completed that cycle. Is that something that is now complete, or do you think that is always a work in progress, and that there's always, and that is there a place of completion for that, to manage people's expectations? Do
No, I don't think it's ever complete. I think it's always a work in progress because
Mhm.
if you deal with the underlying issues, things will still trigger you on those issues. And then day to day, we're still packing in new things. And it took me a long time, but my counselor finally got it through my head that it's like a spiral staircase. You circle back to a lot of the same issues, but from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
And each time you go back to those issues, it's a little bit easier. So, when I say I completed the cycle, I just mean that I feel like most of the heavy lifting
Yeah.
from those old issues has
Yeah.
been done. I still do counseling once a week, even if I don't feel like anything is there. Many times something comes up in the conversation. So I kind of view it as a mix between coaching and just unpacking stuff, and whatever comes up comes up. And something you said, I do want to go back to this because closing my business was the hardest thing I've ever done,
Mm.
because I, one, was so heavily identified with being an attorney. I went through an identity crisis,
Mhm.
to be honest. Like, well, then who, if I'm not an attorney, then who am I? Am I anything? What exactly am I? And so I had to deal with that as well, and then why did I become an attorney? Was it because I just did I really ever love it, or was it because I just needed people to respect me? And I spent my entire life savings and my retirement taking that time off. So it was mortifying. It
Mm.
was just so scary because I thought, this is all I have. But someone said to me, well, you don't get any of it if you're dead. And I
Exactly.
thought, that's a very good point. And if my daughters needed it, certainly I would hand it over without question. So it was a very difficult decision for me to make, but the best decision I've ever made now, looking back at it. And to your point about, can it be organized in a way that makes it work? I think so. And my goal is to do some of that as well. I have reopened to the point of just taking a case here or there so that I'm keeping my feet in it a little bit, but my focus really is on building this other thing, the woman reclaimed,
Yeah.
because that's where my heart is right now. And I don't know if that happens to every woman in their mid 50s, but it certainly has happened to me, where it's just a complete career change from logistical and logical thinking to emotional thinking.
Mhm.
And so it's an interest. It couldn't be more night and day. It's a complete turnaround. But I hope that I can use the practice of law still in some manner that connects to this other thing, so I don't have to fully walk away from it. But if I have to, that's I will do that too. I listen to my body at this point, and that's the beauty of still being in, having a counselor week to week, is she picks up on things that I might not recognize before they get out of control. But yeah, I don't think the counseling or the work on yourself ever really ends.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
something I'm working on the rest of my life.
Always, I think, yeah, and I think also what you're describing now, I'm seeing that as like honoring each stage of the journey, because there was a reason you went into law, even if it was to prove yourself. Like
Mhm.
it's there was something in that. But look, what it did, it okay, it may have burned you out, but it also gave you enough financial stability to keep going and to at that point when you needed to stop, you could, even if it did cost you your life savings, but you had some, you wouldn't have if you'd been doing something else, maybe. It's like honoring each stage of the journey and knowing that it served a purpose. If, if this whole thing put you through, now I've got a little belief within me, and I think that sometimes we go through things and we experience things, and sometimes we have to be taken to the pits of awfulness for a reason, because we are meant to impart some wisdom or help or change other people's lives in some way, and we can't do that unless we've been all the way down. And I think for some of us that are in the space of helping others, we have to go there, and it's like a it's painful, but we do. And so I've had moments where I've really struggled with things and thought, okay, I don't know why, but for some reason, like I have to feel this pain. I've got to go through this.
Yeah.
I'm going to come through this, and then I'm going to be able to help people to a higher level because of it. And maybe you, if you are to pin it to one thing, but maybe you are here on this earth to impact people's lives in such a way that you've had to go through this, like, pay your dues and go through this so you can show up and make such an impact. And who's to say when that happens, in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or beyond? Like, no one gets to pick that.
Mhm.
But you've gone through this journey to be able to go and do what you're doing now, and probably going to explode into doing, but from a place that actually walks your talk. So
Yeah.
when you're helping these people to reclaim their lives, to realign their output with their inner needs, with all of these things, you're going to do it from such a place of truth, and your own structure in doing that will support you. I just think it's beautiful in how this, I can see how this story unfolds, like
Yeah.
before it's even got there. It must feel good to be able to go, no, I can help people to a level that you can't learn that in a classroom.
And I personally, I have finally gotten to that place where I can look back at all of the horrendous things that have happened to me and the way they affected me, and I would genuinely not change a thing.
Mm.
I would experience every bit of that over again, because it has led me to my purpose. And I feel very deeply secure in knowing that this is where I'm meant to be. And I wouldn't be here doing these things had I not experienced all of those other things. So I can see exactly how those things had a purpose in my life, where they led me, how they forced me to grow, and how exactly I can use those things to benefit other women who have experienced the same thing. Because really, all it takes is hearing one person say, "Oh, wait, that's happened to me too." At least for me, anyway, hearing someone else speak and tell a story that I identified with, and I thought, "Oh, wow, that's me. I've had that. I know what she's talking about." To make you feel more normal, less crazy, so to speak. Not to use, I don't like that word, but
I know what you mean.
when you're in those moments, you're really questioning yourself and why am I doing this? Why am I here? What is going on? And you just don't know if you are really sane in your own mind. And so when you hear someone else speak about it and tell their story, it is just it opens a doorway
Yeah.
for other people to go, wait, if she can do it, I can do it. And I'm sitting here telling you, to anybody who's listening, if I can do it, you can do it. There's just no doubt. It's work, but there's absolutely a way, and there's hope. There's a bright light on the other side of it if you just stick with it and keep going even when you don't want to.
I love that. And it's such a powerful message. This kind of connection as well, like that you get when you listen to other people, when you hear your story in somebody else, when it resonates in that way. We also have these stages that I think that are for different things. So when I talk to business owners, sometimes I know that they aren't in their purpose business yet. Like that's not their purpose. It's a stepping stone. And so, the stepping stone might be the thing that you're going to learn a load from, but it's going to financially prop you up. And you need that to be able to then do the next thing, and it will show itself. But all those things being part of the journey, and it's okay if we all set about only doing the thing that we felt was our calling and our purpose and the reason we're here, we probably all be broke and the world would not go around. So we need to sometimes do the thing that's to pay the bills, that's to keep us afloat. But that doesn't, I think I find this a difficult one because I've been lucky enough to always kind of follow my passions, really. And I do count myself lucky. I've made it happen. I've made every hobby into a business in some way or another. But it's sometimes we do things because it's like that's to pay the bills. But if you can find and listen to what really lights you up inside, and then you get to do the next thing. So right now, you get to sort of straddle the legal business with your real purpose and what you're developing and see. And, there may come a time where there isn't a place to practice law in there anymore because you're fully fulfilled without it. But it's there, and it's a part of the story. It's a part of you.
Right now, my gut feeling is that the law practice is to pay the bills, but I will eventually walk away from that because I don't feel pulled to it like I once did.
Yeah.
And for many years, I did. I just loved it, and I was excited about it, and I would talk about law and bore people to death because nobody really wants to talk about that. But I'd be just really excited about it. But to at this juncture, I don't see myself staying in that arena unless I can do it in a way that benefits what I'm doing now and connect those dots. And there may be a way, and I'm sort of letting some of those ideas roll around in the back of my mind. I'm not going to completely just wipe it away, but I think there are better ways for me to use those legal skills than to do divorces. And I think for me personally, I've gone through such a transformational change that I almost view divorces as tearing families apart in a way. And so if I can figure out how to use those talents to put families together, or to, if they have to separate, do it in a more peaceful, amicable way that doesn't completely destroy relationships and children, then I will feel a lot more settled and I will feel a lot better about it.
Yeah.
But something that happened with the law practice and doing family law is I saw what women went through, and I represented, most of my clients were women, and to see a pattern of what women go through and how it affects their lives, and how do we fix, where do I go from here? That's also part of this reclaiming yourself. And that's what's part of what started the idea, was how do I bridge that gap for women who are coming out of this whole identity of being a wife, a mother, all of those things. How do I now what? What do I do? And so that's sort of how I started it, and let me help women take those steps. And then it just has blossomed into something else that's just even more fulfilling for me. But there's good even in what I have done and been doing for the last 20 years.
Definitely. And it is all those steps, that those pieces. When you look back again, you'll see the dots joining up, and how,
Mhm.
well, because I did this, I learnt this, and I saw this, and it will all apply to that. I love your idea of, there must be a way of using my skills to help connect people rather than support them disconnecting. And I think there's definitely something in that. The identity shift stuff, we change identities when we become a mum, when the kids grow up, when we shift careers, when there's lots of times of, who am I now? Like, for ages I was mum. Now what am I now? Like, what do I? So there's your lived experience through, and seeing so many of these things take shape, will only enhance your strength in and quality in what you do in this next chapter. And I think that's really exciting to see that unfold. So just talk to me then a little bit about this now, with the Women Reclaimed, with your business that you're growing and the people that you want to help. Let's just describe who are they? What are they likely to be thinking, feeling? Because there will be people listening to this going, that's me. Like, I'm hearing myself in this. And who are they? And what's your, I guess, mission in terms of how you want to support them, and what you want them, the outcomes that you would love to support people with?
I think for me, the ideal person that comes to mind would be a woman who is feeling exhausted,
Yeah.
who is feeling off, who's suddenly, or may not so suddenly, not feeling like her career fits anymore, or just that level of numbness. Well, it's like something's not right. I'm not depressed. I'm not clinically depressed, but something isn't right. I'm how or health issues. If someone who would be in a similar situation to where I was, where you know something is not right and you know you could be better, but you're not sure what it is. And what I would like to do is help women figure that out, to coach them through and give them questions or direction, or actions that they could take week to week or month to month, or however the setup is in terms of coaching, that helps them figure those things out so they don't have to do it on their own. For me, I sort of did it on my own, piecemeal here and there, and it was so hard. And I remember thinking, I wish there was someone who could help me march through this and sort of hold my hand. And I certainly would have loved to have had someone who had been through it and
Yeah.
understood what I was talking about, because I felt very alone
Yeah.
and very isolated. And even socializing to me at that time was exhausting. And so I just stopped even socializing with my girlfriends. And so I really just, I almost see it as a hand holding just to help women redirect their lives, because we are built for happiness. We're built for joy. And so many of us are living in a place of, I have to do this and I've got to get this done and it's got to be done in a hurry. And I've got one more thing and I am just going to explode if anybody adds one more thing to the list. It's giving women permission to say, no,
Mhm.
complete sentence. I don't have to take that on. I'm not going to, because today I'm going to take some rest because I need it. It's a very difficult, it sounds simple. It's a very difficult thing to do, particularly if you're somebody who's been an overachiever or a perfectionist, or just, a people pleaser, someone who's everything to everybody except for yourself. And I'm not trained in therapy, so it's not therapeutic for me, but just giving people direction and talking those issues through so that I can help them pinpoint what's going on in their own minds. Because sometimes you just need someone else to see or point out what you're thinking and saying that you don't recognize, and giving action steps that, okay, this week, this is what I want you to do. I want you to try, and then let's talk next week and see how it worked and how you feel. That's my hope. That's how I envision it.
It's so important and it's so human because there is so much information now that we have access to. But when you're that person feeling the way you described, you can't name it, you can't articulate it. So how can you even know what book to read or what thing to go and look up, or because you don't know what it is? And that's when you end up lost down paths of, "Oh, it's this thing or it's this thing," and labels that people put on it. A classic one of it being hormonal. Sometimes, yeah, that plays a part, like, not denying that, but it's when you can't put your finger on it, you're subject to be easily influenced and led by things it may not be. But to
Mhm.
be able to talk to somebody who human being that knows how to ask you the right questions to uncover what actually is going on. And like you say, you're not there to go, "Oh, okay, thank you for your information. That would be this problem. Let's go and address that problem." It's not, it's so much more holistic. And that's like you said, when you go, "Okay, well, let's try this, see how that feels, come and talk about this again." And it may be that we need to do something a bit different, or it may be that we're onto something, but that real human connective hand-holding that you're describing, and I think that that's incredibly valuable and rare, and that's your magic. And I think that that's, keep developing that, because it's needed, and you will transform or assist people in transforming their lives to be able to carry, I think, the high achievement and the happiness, the fulfillment, the self-love, the all the good stuff. It's not either or.
Right. Someone commented on one of my posts about, I think the post was about, it was just sort of a sweet post going, hey, you ladies who are overachievers, just, I'm giving you permission to slow down. And someone commented, well meaning, but why would you want to just sit around and do nothing? Why not fill up your life? And I thought, that's
Missing
not
the point.
right. That's what I was thinking. That's not the point. The point is definitely not to sit around and do nothing but watch TV all day. The point is we are overworking and done it to the extent that it is normalized. So we don't even know any different. It's our bodies finally going, I'm going to break down. You're going to have a disease. You're not going to do well. Something's got to give. So it really is more about, how do we expand ourselves and give ourselves enough self-care that we can hold on to these high achieving jobs and be successful in our careers, because we deserve that. But we also deserve rest, you know. And that is just for my generation, at least. I'm sure it's probably across the board. That wasn't an option. I came up in the 70s and 80s when women were just starting to come into career fields out of being stay-at-home moms. And so, what was imprinted upon me was, I get to have a career. And thank goodness that I got to have that. But it was also kind of this dichotomy of you have to be it all. You still have to be the wife that takes care of your husband and children, and also be a high achieving career woman. And so it just added more to my plate over the years. You know, part of me wishes I had figured it out sooner,
Hmm.
but the other part of me says if I didn't fully crash and burn, I would not feel as strongly as I do about my deep desire of helping other women come out of that.
Hmm. And I think, yeah, and I think that's where you probably do draw upon that almost, some people would say, what? But gratitude for the pain because of that. And I think there's probably a wave now of women that are, that, that have experienced enough of life to be able to resonate and go, yeah, I've been a like career woman, high achiever, burnt out, this resonates because like you say that it's not that long ago in history when we didn't even have those careers and do those things. So I think there's this wave now where we're seeing this. And yeah, I love that you've said, that if somebody's saying, why would you want to sit around and do nothing? It's like they are missing the point. They obviously haven't experienced it. And like you say, it's well meaning. It's not, it's a fair question, but we're not saying do nothing, take your foot off the gas and be lazy. We're saying you can give yourself breathing space and not, utilize every cell of your being to just be on go, go, go all the time. And so many of us do fall into that. So I think it's really timely. And I think we are at a point in history where we're going to see more and more women, especially, popping up with these problems of excessive overwork, burnout, taking on too many things for that exact reason. So it's impressive work and important work.
It certainly seems to, or what I'm seeing, maybe my algorithm on social media is just taking me to certain things, but it seems like more and more women are coming to those realizations that this doesn't feel right.
Mm.
Something's not right. I'm unfulfilled. I'm just exhausted and there's no joy in my life anymore. I love my children. I love my family, but I'm exhausted and this isn't fun for me anymore. And I think when we lose the fun, we lose the creativity. We lose that fire inside that makes you just, now I wake up and I just can't wait to, what piece of this am I going to work on today in building this thing? And it excites me and I love it. And I love talking about it. I love every part of what I'm doing. And for me, if I just have one person that I help, that makes it worth it. That makes everything I have gone through absolutely worth it.
I love that. I love that. You're so right. There's no coincidence why there are some big name people who have had very public success, women I'm thinking of here, who have pivoted, shut things down, closed things off for this exact reason. And it's because it got them there, but it's not going to get them there because life's changed, the balance has shifted. Maybe they're mums now and they weren't when they started it, or like just something's shifted in who they are now compared to who they were when they created that. And I think that there's no surprise that you're seeing more and more of that. I'm sure our algorithms have something to do with it, but I don't think it's just that. I think it genuinely is like a time in history. I think also, we're what, 5 years or roughly from having a global pandemic where lots of things lots of things have gone very, very online and visible. So we're seeing now
That's
almost the
true.
fallout from a lot of what probably turned into overworking and online access, that suddenly the whole world went online very quickly. It didn't happen at the pace it would have. It got fast forwarded. And I think that we're seeing some of the fallout from that, where people have almost boomed too fast and boomed and burned out. There's probably something, I don't know, that's just guesswork, but there's probably something in that as well.
I think
It's so timely and so important. So, I mean, I am so grateful to you coming on here and sharing your story so vulnerably, so truthfully. And I think, there were lots of people that will resonate with your story or even think, wow, I can see myself going that way if I don't start taking notice of the little signs, the little taps on the shoulder that we ignore, and keep going, keep going. And if that is you, I want you to look up Alenna's details where we'll put links in the show notes. Reach out, because rather than wait until you've ignored all those taps on the shoulder and something big happens, there are simple, small things you can do to be aware along the way. Alenna, is there any kind of like closing takeaway message that you really want to make sure you share before we wrap up today? Is there anything you want our listeners to make sure they've heard loud and clear?
I would like to piggyback something you just said. And
Yeah.
this is something that I am having to do for myself right now, because burnout happens in many different stages. I was way on the other side of stage 5, where crash and burn. And I don't think, anybody wants to ever get to that point. So listening to the small things before it gets large is the most important thing. And I'm having to teach myself the same thing as I build this business, because right now I'm so jazzed about it. I'm so enthused about it. It just pours out of me. So the temptation is there to just keep going, just keep creating, keep doing. And so I am having to set guardrails for myself to make sure that I don't go back down that road and lead myself into burnout a second time. So, it's catching it early that is the hard part, and that's the thing that requires some really good listening and training. And if I can help somebody with that, I absolutely would love to do so.
So you heard that, guys, and I'm, take note, even if it's a small thing. It could be a small ailment that you would maybe think that you can get a pill for or a cream for or a whatever. But actually, what's the deeper meaning behind that? What is your body trying to say or flush out or give you a nudge on? And maybe while obviously addressing that thing, having a conversation and seeing what else is underneath it, I mean, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So the sooner the better. Alenna, thank you so, so much for coming on and talking with us today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I imagine this will not be the last conversation we have either. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. This was wonderful.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright, because you were born to be brilliant.